Today's IT is struggling not due to lack of technology, but it is struggling due to lack of reliability. Systems are growing fast. Customers expect zero downtime, and one downtime can cost companies in millions. And that is where site reliability engineering comes into picture. Today we have a special guest who has been part of restoring 1,000+ applications in the war rooms, who is also Principal SRE Director at Fortune 3 organization and also founder of our own SRE at Hyderabad community. Mr. Vinay Gattu. Hi Vinay, thanks for joining RKIT Labs podcast.
Thank you, Ravi. That's a wonderful introduction. I could not ask for more. And I love conversations. And today you invited me for the SRE conversations, which is close to my heart, right? And I'm eagerly waiting for these conversations, as always, with you. So thanks again for inviting me.
All right, thanks Vinay for accepting this offer. So moving forward, Vinay, can you please take some time and introduce about you and your career so far?
I've been an engineer at heart, working as an engineer for more than 20+ years. I still call myself as an engineer, not as a leader, because when you are working in a corporate, engineer mindset is what drives you forward, right? So even I started like any other college grad, so on an on-campus interview selected. So my journey started as an on-campus trainee. So joined at an MNC, one of the top MNC within India, right? And then my graph of engineering has changed because I joined an organization wherein they give the nurturing, they give the mentorship to the trainee, and that has very ground capabilities built in me, which I am now, right? So like anybody else, I started as a fresher where you have given everything to do. So I was doing a development, I was doing the installation of the software, I was even configuring them, right? Like any other fresher. So then I started being a developer, nurturing my engineering skills. I was a production support lead, and I joined an Fortune 3 organization, which I'm working now as a production support lead, leading a critical application within the organization. And then I started consciously as an SRE. Now you can ask me later why SRE, all those things, but that is what me and what defines me.
Right.
Then I started leading portfolios as an SRE leader, and right now I'm leading enterprise SRE portfolio as a Senior Principal SRE, defining the principles of SRE practices.
Right. That's a great journey, Vinay. For our viewers, can you please describe what is SRE? And most of the people think SRE and DevOps or production support are more or less the same. So how SRE is different?
That's a great question, Ravi. And we contest on this many of the times. As well, so we were talking like, hey, I have a DevOps role. Can you share SRE profiles? I get this from many of the leaders like, I have SRE, DevOps, production support roles. Can you share few profiles?
And it's a myth in the market. So people think these are same, SRE or prod support or DevOps.
True. So before I answer that, right, I want to take you to the timeline in 2025. So you are aware of Azure, AWS, Cloudflare, GCP, the big players, right? So they have a very impactful downtimes last year,
right,
where the applications could not work. And because these are major cloud service providers, majority of the applications where the consumers use are down, right? Who do you think restored them? DevOps? Production support guys? No. It was SREs who restored that within few hours, right? So with that context, so SRE, site reliability engineering, is kind of a engineering discipline, like where they take the production support or operations problems and find engineering solutions. You can ask me like DevOps does the same thing, right? But they bridge the gap between the developers and operations. Whereas SREs take the production operational problems and implement engineering solutions.
Okay. So that means SRE plays a very prominent role in the uptime of the applications. No matter how good the code is written, if it is not reliable, then system doesn't work out and it impacts the clients. Okay. So how did you become an SRE from a coding or development background?
Yeah, that's a great question because many of my colleagues are still working as an engineering leader, right? Or a support leader, right? If you ask me, maybe I was coined or trained for an SRE. I feel that way because when I shared you a few minutes back, I started my journey as an engineer, working as an MNC, doing all of the things. Maybe that was helped me to become a good SRE, because for an SRE, you need to be a jack of all, right? Like you need to have a T-shaped skills wherein you are an SME in one of the areas, or development or incident management, handling the production situations, architecting the solutions, and doing a performance testing, right? So I was doing all of that in my career, right? So maybe that conscious effort I have taken 10 years back, right? If I am doing all of the things which qualify for SRE, why can't it be SRE, right? Then I took a decision to become an SRE as my primary forte. Then I was taking up the more focused learning paths on SRE skills, because I was doing in bits and pieces and pockets of work. But to become an SRE, its culture and mindset was already there for me. There are few skills I was honoring myself to be a better SRE.
Okay. So what were the biggest challenges during your role as an SRE, the lead SRE?
So the biggest challenge is not working as an SRE. The biggest challenge for me was my leader was asking, are you an SRE? It was more of convincing them, I am an SRE, I am not a developer, I am not a DevOps guy, I am not a support guy. So the challenge for most of the SREs who are already in this SRE space is convincing their leadership they are different from DevOps and production support guys.
Why do you think so? Even working in the top 3 Fortune company, why people are still not filling that gap of SRE? So what are the common skills required for the SRE? And what is the gap you see in finding the suitable profiles?
So because there is no one solution or a blueprint for to become an SRE, right? Because you can become a developer, you can become a data scientist by learning few technologies, tools, right? But if you ask me, many people came to me and leaders also said, hey, can you learn Splunk, a log aggregation tool? Can you learn monitoring tools, right? Can you do automation? You're SRE, right? So it's not as easy like any other developer. So SRE is not a learning something on a tooling or a tech stack. Absolutely. It's all about culture, mindset. Right. How do you approach the operation problem and get an engineering solution? It is, it can be via Python, it can be via Java, right? That's an agnostic. So it's all about mindset and culture. That's why the gap in the organizations is broadening, because we are not fixing the gap of culture and mindset. Rather, we are enforcing engineers to learn some tool stack and calling them SRE. So it's kind of rubbing the things on them and labeling them as SRE rather than preparing them as an SRE.
So what measures that companies or the leaders should take to make the systems more reliable and to bridge this gap in terms of the SRE knowledge?
At least fortunate enough, the Fortune top 100 companies are aware of what it is now if you don't nurture the SRE talent, because they have seen the bitter experiences the last couple of years, as I was alluding, Amazon, Azure, or GCP or Cloudflare, right? And let me take a personal example, right? Because I've been part of 1,000+ war rooms in restoring, and it takes a lot to be part of war room because it drains you, right? So the leaders understand that every war room in my organization costs at least $10,000. Right? It's a business impact.
Great number.
It's an engineering toil. It's a time spent by leaders on a non-valuable conversations rather than working on a strategy or roadmap. Right? Think about that. So now the industry understands, leaders understand what it takes. Now they are starting to support and elevate the SRE culture, right? But it takes time now. As I said, it's a culture and mindset, not an overnight journey.
Yes.
So they are there. But a lot of efforts has to put in consciously now because of the ignorance we have done in the past.
And that's where I see you, because I've been following you and the community, and I've been part of many of your programs where you started the community called as SRE at Hyderabad, focusing mostly on the Hyderabad community. So can you please brief what is this community about and what are the activities that you are taking part?
So it was a community started as a selfish thing, to be fair enough, because I was leading the portfolios and platforms, mentoring the SRE talent, right? So I had a need at one time, like 3 years back, so wherein I had to put up an SRE team, but there was no SRE talent available. So I tried to mix and match, as everybody said, because SRE is not one person. He has to wear multiple hats. When he is looking at a production system, he has to wear an incident management,
Right.
right, troubleshooting hat. When he finds a problem, now he has to architect
Right.
and design the solution. Now he has to be a developer
Right.
to implement that. He has to be a testing guy or a performance. So what I did was I was mix and matching these guys and mentoring them, right? But it was taking time, right? And it was not filling the requirements or positions for me. Then I started within my organization the mentorship cohorts, right? It was a success, to be fair enough. So within 6 months, I was able to set up 2 Scrum teams, sufficient SRE talent. Then I thought, like, last year, some September 2025, I thought, like, why I cannot stretch out this to the community, because it is the same problem for every company,
Across the idea, yeah.
right? So many community leaders reached out to me. Why don't you inculcate and elevate this SRE experience, right? That's when we started SRE Hyderabad. And you guys can check on srehyderabadi.com. So it gives us intent, it gives us what we want to do. If you want me put in few words, it is about, like, it is simplifying the complex things and automating the simple things and elevating the human. That's all what SREs does, right? So SREs find a complex problems, they simplify it so that the issue doesn't happen. If they find a simpler things, they automate the things.
Right.
Now, and they elevate the human experience.
Right. And how many followers you have in the community?
So it's been a very overwhelming community, to be fair. So they are accepting us within last 4 months. We started with 5 a team. Now we are 800 plus community members, and it's growing every day. I feel blessed to have this Hyderabad community experience. Every day, at least 50 to 100 members are joining recently.
Right. And I see you're undertaking multiple programs at the MNC levels, at the corporate levels, to bridge this gap. Can you brief some of the programs that you have organized recently?
The community experience always an enriching, Ravi. You know that very well, right? You've been with me for a few of the events.
Right.
So it always gives a real-time experience, right? And Hyderabad community is very rich in engineering culture, so which we are blessed with. So we just need to tap on that right engineering culture and elevate them with what is needed for the companies, right? So as part of this SRE Hyderabad community experience, we thought of sharing the culture and mindset, the ground rules of SRE, how to be an SRE, right? What it takes to be an SRE, with a real-time conversations, demos and sessions, so that they understand the essence of SRE culture, right? And we also do workshops within the organizations, and we do have a lot of roadmap items to open our conversations, to bring the real problems and converse with them, how they should think like an SRE. It's not about giving a solution, it's about thinking like an SRE. That's what we want to preach and mentor.
And many people lack the experience also. People might work on multiple projects saying an SRE, but practically they may not get the experience, the rich experience. And say otherwise about the mindset, the culture mindset, as you told, it's very, very important being an SRE. So how you are training this mindset in your programs?
So I'll take a very simple example to address that problem, right? So unless you own something, unless you get the pain, you don't evolve, right? So if you take anything, it's not yours, then you don't own, right? You don't think about giving solutions. So first thing about SRE is like owning that problem, right? Whenever you are presented with a problem, own it. It's your problem. Think like, how can we get out of that, right? So it's all about the mindset. How can we get out? It's not about applying a fancy, polished automation, writing a Python or a Java code. It's all about restoring the situation. So that's where we inculcate the mindset, how you should address the problem, how should you evolve in a critical pressure boiling situations.
Right. And in the market, I see majority of the training programs are related to tech. Okay, Java, Python, AI, GenAI and all this. But I never saw trainings about SRE and the SRE principles. Though we have, it is very, very less in the number. So what would be your thought? How the SRE principles can be part of the trainings and how that can be inculcated to engineers?
I think you have hit the nail, right? So that's exactly the problem, right? Everybody tries to teach their own products, their own technologies, right? If you to see a lot of training institutes. They say like, we'll teach you Splunk, Dynatrace, monitoring tools. We'll tell you how to do automation, shell scripting. They also say, be a developer, and I'll also do a load testing tool, all those things. They're never addressing the core problem or the gap, as we were talking, the mindset, right?
Yeah.
And if you remember, like last week, I was asking Ravi, why don't you pick up that gap and address the problem? And I hope you are working on that, and
Yes.
I'm definitely looking forward to collab with that, because that's a great problem to address.
Right.
And being SREs in our own areas, right? That's a problem we have to address as an SRE too, right?
Yeah, because technology or the tools can help only to some extent. The trainings will help only to get the basic knowledge. But coming to the curiosity, coming to the proactiveness, attitude, mindset, communication skills, these are the primary skills for an SRE. So in the crisis scenario or the war room, what would be your mindset? How do you handle the client pressure? How do you escalate? So how do you reduce that mean time to response? So these are very, very important to bring or restore the application back to the normal. Okay, and how do you handle this crisis management? How do you handle the disaster recovery management? So it's very, very important being an SRE.
Yeah, you rightly said. I mean, yeah. So most of the times, organizations or training institutes or even engineers who want to become SRE, right? They're learning the tools. They're not learning the need of the hour, how to handle the crux of what SREs are prepared for, right? They are there to resolve the situation, restore the situation, right? And you have to practice how to be calm, how to think in a situation where everything is boiling, right? And how you can come out of that. Yeah. And you rightly said communication skills. That's an underrated skill for any engineer, and for SREs more, because when the situation is not normal, nobody listens to you, right? That's where you have to show your communication skills in SRE, how to calm down your leadership, because you might have seen this situation. Everything goes well, you'll be ignored.
Yes.
When the things are not working, they'll say, where is Vinay? Where is this guy? Why is this happening, right? So that's where you have to show your calm. And how do the calm come in your posture, in your attitude, or in your behavior, if you're prepared for that, right? That's where we have to prepare our engineers, right?
Out of the box, preparation out of the box, again, no, not reactive mode, it should be proactive mode, out of the box. And to add, Vinay, some of the examples I could see in some of the projects where I worked, people don't have the automated alert mechanism. When the alert is triggered, people don't acknowledge, people don't respond, people don't know what is a SLA defined on a failure, people don't follow the escalation matrix or the crisis management, people don't inform the stakeholder management to the stakeholder business about the criticality of the incident, no timely communications are being sent. So how it's going to impact on the business?
Yeah, so this is actually an unspoken work SREs does day in, day out in a conversation, right? If you ask, like, War Room is not just about restoring the problem. It's keeping the stakeholders up to date, informed what is happening, and giving an ETA. And this is not one person job. But most of the times leaders think it should have been done by you as an SRE. But there are multiple other roles as an SRE he should be aware of, right? There is a command center guys, the restoration lead, communication lead, right? And which role SRE is playing on that call, right? And also communicating effectively. So don't give an overboard 5 calls, last 10 minutes, 200 response, 500 strategies failure. This doesn't make any sense for the leaders, right?
Absolutely.
So you have to give a simplistic, the business offering of this application to connect to the user, login is not working. That's how the communication skills of an SRE comes to play. At the same time, you might be working with another tech team. You have to explain what is happening under the hood, right? So the network calls from the microservice A to B. So SRE, as I said, is not only jack of all in the technology stack or the roles he play. He also need to switch his communication skills as and when during the call itself, multiple times when he's talking to that particular person. Like if you're talking to a leader, right, you have to be able to give that crisp 30-second update for him to get pleased, because he is answerable to someone else.
Absolutely, right.
And again, at the same time, he is to be authoritative on the call to get a solution working with the tech partners.
Correct. And it should be more flexible and adaptable to the scenarios.
Yeah.
So Vinay, with AI coming in right now, how SRE roles are going to impact, and what is the future of SRE with AI?
Let me tell you one thing, Ravi. I think coming coming AI into everybody's life, even to the engineer's life, in a way, it's a boon for SREs. Actually, it's a plus for SREs because it gives more opportunities for SRE to explore.
I agree. Yes.
Right? So because people are thinking these days, AI will take my job, AI will take developer job. So let me give a interesting stat, right? So there are 6 job profiles. I'll not go deeper into all 6 profiles, but there are 6 job profiles which AI will not disturb, right? And SRE is one of them.
Wow.
I hope that makes a profounding statement like SREs are safe and secure.
Absolutely. I agree to that.
And the interesting stat which came to me yesterday, I was talking to one of the GCC leader in Hyderabad. They shared in 2026 and 27, we're going to see at least 500 GCCs coming in Hyderabad.
Oh.
500, right? We have only 365 now. So it's almost double the what current is, right?
And that would get a lot of opportunities also.
And almost like there are 2000 plus SRE job profiles which are going to be required.
Okay.
And how many we have, you know very well.
Very less.
Hardly in hundreds.
Right.
But the requirement is in thousands.
Okay.
I think if somebody, right, you want to change or you want to switch to an SRE role, it's the best time.
This is the right time to move. And that too, AI will not have any impact on SRE because I'll give you an example. For me, when I get a production issue late night, 2 o'clock midnight or 3 o'clock in the midnight, so it's me who is going to handle the crisis, not AI.
Yeah.
AI cannot do the crisis management or the war room management.
Yeah.
So definitely, this tech stack or the role SRE will not get wiped off by the AI, and SRE should adopt the AI tools more into the day-to-day life, and they should be more adaptable, flexible, and upskill themselves.
Yeah, you rightly said. I mean, AI is not going to replace you. Let me share you my personal experience. I think that will help to ground everyone like why AI cannot replace you, right? As an SRE, we are experienced with multiple critical situations, and end of the day, if you look into the solution, they are very simple, right? So one such situation happened like 5 years ago. So there was a developer who has coded the application and they have released the code. And many of the applications database are in UTC time zone. Everybody knows, right? Default time zone, the database is UTC. So he has coded in such a way, it will look at the local time zone. It was in US application. So in CST as it is like 6 hours difference. And he was considering the time zone, local time zone, but by mistake, he was considering the UTC, whereas he should have considered the local time zone of CST. So what happened, that 6 hour window, it was treating like yesterday.
Okay.
And it was not working as expected. And that application is a healthcare application where it has to provide a latest policy, whether he has valid policy or not. It was saying that your policy expired yesterday.
Business impact.
Right? So do you think AI would have solution that?
Absolutely.
What would have AI done? Because AI is kind of a trained model, right? It only looks into the past. It doesn't give anything new, right? It would have suggested fix the issue and redeploy.
It basically enhances your profile or the outcome or the efficiency. The productivity gets enhanced.
Correct.
But the problem solving skills and the critical thinking is something cannot be replaced.
Yeah. So at that time, a solution gave by me looks like funny. What I said, my leader, hey, let's do a DB statement update to update the time zone at 12 midnight to 6 a.m. And at 5:59 a.m. we'll update it again as back. So that 6 hour window is not impacted.
Yes.
So which will give the business as usual. Right. Because for a developer to implement the code, at least it takes 1 day.
Yes.
So next 1 day the business would have impact.
You cannot survive.
So what I have given as an SRE mindset, as I said, SREs only think about restoration. They don't think, they have to think about a traditional way of restoring things, but sometimes business is important for us, right? So that cheat trick, street smart logic helped us to restore. And I don't think AI would have given that solution to just rewrite the script, run it again twice, right? So that's where, as you rightly said, it's the mindset and culture of SREs which helps them to sustain forever.
And to add on, taking the right decisions at the right point of time is very, very important to bring the system or the application back on track. And second, coding or developing to some extent, it will help if the system is not reliable. So just coding will not help your job, will not help you to retain your job. coding or the applications should be more reliable.
Rightly said, right? That's a core fundamental elevation pitch for an SRE because developers are writing code, and because of the AI in the market, they're writing the code and delivering a lot of products left and right. Like
AI
you can see each product every day. Now there was a PI planning which used to happen 3 months, and at the end of the sprint they used to deliver the product. Now if you see at the end of the first week, the scrums and the sprints have been reduced, right? Now the reliability is compromised because they're delivering the products. That is where an SRE has to complement this aggressive development cycle with a reliability to that.
AI coming in with a lot of complications in the complex architecture, the SRE role will be more significant going forward.
It is more significant, as I said, because of the opportunities, and I said it doesn't touch, but AI also gives the work for SRE. That is a beauty actually for SRE. Many of the work roles are being compromised because of SRE. Their work roles have been skimmed. Half of the work is taken by AI, right? But for SRE, it is complementing in both ways. It is helping as an enabler, and also it's giving the work. Now you can ask me how AI is giving the work, right? So what do SREs do, right? Generally, they observe the application, they develop the monitoring, they develop how the system is behaving.
Right.
And with the AI in the picture, now we have to monitor the additional AI work, right?
Yes.
So that is how SREs have still a valid role and very critical because of the AI is growing at a faster pace. Now SREs also have a lot more work
Responsibility,
to do.
right?
Right.
We cannot blindly trust or believe the AI models also until unless they are tested end to end, and that too on the production where the business is having an impact. And it leads to financial loss, reputational loss. Okay, so any stakeholder or the business impact, it impacts the company in millions because of the SLA breaches. So we cannot blindly adopt any principles or the tools. So it needs to be thoroughly tested end to end, where SRE role again comes into the picture.
There is a saying, this is a practical saying by an engineering practitioner, right? So you can get the things done from 0 to 50 within a day. But making that 50 to 100 or 50 to 60 and 60 to 70, that is more critical. What AI is doing is, it is giving that initial benefits of creating a POC, getting the things working model. Right? But are they done in enterprise mode? Are they stable? Are they reliable? No, because the humans been habituated to a deterministic model. So all of these years, applications were developed. And even the SREs, so-called legacy SREs I will call, because if you're not using an latest mindset of using an AI and monitoring an AI, you are a legacy SRE for me.
Yes.
Right? So they used to have that monotonic signals, right? So is the system up and down, 200 status, right? If it is responding without error, it is success. But do you think that is same signals we have to apply for AI applications? No. Because AI will always give you something, which means 200 response. And AI will always give something, makes it more vulnerable for an SRE to monitor, because we don't know what is correct, what is wrong. So the hallucination, so makes it more complex. That's why the way the SRE has to behave now for an AI applications is changing rapidly.
Okay.
And fortunate for SREs, because they are not trained for tools, they're not trained for text, they're trained for mindset and culture. So that helps us to just switch the culture, switch the mindset or perspective for an AI applications.
Right, correct. And can you brief about the tech stack or the skills and upcoming or aspirational SRE should focus upon?
So we are at the brim of this AI, so which is definitely helping anybody to become an AI SRE. Because if you ask me what is an SRE or who can be an SRE, or many people ask me, hey, I know I'm already doing development, I'm a full stack engineer, I'm a testing, doing testing from long time, can I be an SRE? Right? The good thing about current time, right? SREs fundamentally needs the jack of all trades. In some legacy time, people used to say, hey, be a SME, be a specialist, right? Don't be a generalist, right? But unfortunately, that is not a thing for SRE. SRE has to be a generalist. SRE has to be a specialist. Now you can ask, how can we that intersection of both, right? So that's where we hear this T-shaped skills. T-shaped skills is something core for an SRE, where he has an SME skill, but has a knowledge of what is around on other skill set. Like if you take an example, he has to find a problem, right? He finds an operation problem. Now that he has to have an incident management and production support and the ITSM guidelines of knowledge, right? That is his core strength of finding an operation problem, right? But how do SRE solution that with an engineering mindset? Now he has to design that. So he should be an architect. Now after you design, you have to implement a solution. So either you have to write a Java code, Python code, some kind of engineering. Now after you have written something, don't you test it? You have to be a tester. Now if you test it, you have to scale it up. You should be a performance engineer. So if you ask me who can be an SRE at this moment?
Anyone can be.
Anyone can be an SRE.
They have to adopt 360 degrees and above.
Correct. Anyone can be SRE, but with right mindset and cultural towards the practices, that is where everybody has to tune and honor that.
Interesting to know that even coding background people also can enter into SRE, and coding is also required for an SRE. Okay, so coming to the college graduates or the fresher, are there any SRE roles or opportunities to them? Because I don't hear anywhere in the market recruitment for the freshers.
Surprisingly, there are many roles for SRE junior engineers these days, even for a fresher.
Okay.
I mean, the role expectations are simple. You need to come and experience the SRE behavior and implement those practices in pockets, right? Because as a fresher, you'll have a focused role.
Right,
so you cannot do the breadth of the SRE what he was doing, right? You can be a part of improving that observability. Observability as a problem statement. Take that and implement an engineering solution, how to implement the observability, right? Take a incidents, right? The customer escalations. How can you take that problem statement, improve a solution to address the problem statement? So there is definitely an opportunity for college grads or who is very fresh in their IT career to become an SRE. And I think if you remember exactly, last week I think we were talking about a college visit and
right,
and you said you have a plan, and that's exactly where we were discussing college to corporate, not only for engineering mindset, how do we elevate an SRE mindset, right?
Nice.
So I think you have a greater opportunity, Ravi, I guess, to bridge this gap, because I know you are working with colleges and students to enhance and
some of the
make
skills
them ready for the corporate.
Right. Yeah, we have been taking some of the programs to the college level also to bridge this gap in terms of the mindset and the culture, because colleges don't teach this tech stack or the concept. So it is our responsibility, being an IT professionals, and we need to deliver the same thing to the upcoming IT professionals, where the colleges don't teach. They still focus on the traditional model of learning. And can you brief some of the tools, which are the tools the aspirational SRE should focus upon?
It's not about tools, Ravi, definitely. I mean, there are few tools just to start their experience as an SRE. So, but I would like them to address the engineering aspects of whatever we discuss. Like if you, in the incident management or ITSM guidelines, right? As a production support engineer, you have to have a skill like a production support engineer. But how do you get a skill like a production support engineer, right? You need to be able to understand the incident management systems like ServiceNow or Jira, right? And how do you monitor or observe an application? So there are multiple monitoring tools. You can pick anything. So the underlying concept the engineer has to train themselves is what is that rather than which tool, right? So like a Splunk, like an Elastic APM, Dynatrace, New Relic, right? There are many tools, and every day one tool or other tool comes up. But he has to understand the underlying principles and train them how to use those tools, rather than saying that I know XYZ tool and I'm SRE and update the resume.
Right. Okay. And coming to this SRE role, even the startup needs to adopt, or it's only for the large enterprises?
So you tell me, so you are a started as a startup, right? Do you think your application goes down, you are okay?
Absolutely no. It's very important.
Right. So
it doesn't matter which application it is. End of the day, the customer experience is must.
Right.
impact might be millions to top companies, impact might be less in terms of the financials or revenue. But end of the day, once we lose the trust of the customers, regaining it would be very, very tough.
So it's as simple as that. I think you answered it right. Now, if you have a product, you have an application, and it's business critical, and it cannot take a downtime, regardless of whether it's a startup company, it's an enterprise, it's a Fortune 10, it's needed.
Right.
Then who are the saviors? SREs.
SREs. So the final last question, Vinay, can you please elaborate your vision on SRE Hyderabad and the upcoming opportunities for next 3 to 5 years for the SRE roles, and what would be the roadmap or the direction from you as a senior principal SRE?
So, as an SRE at Hyderabad, a community leader, it was fascinating to see the people interested to become an SRE, right? And good thing about that, we do have abundant opportunities coming up in next couple of years.
Upcoming GCCs.
Upcoming GCs, where you call it's going to be 2x of GCCs in next 2 to 3 years. Even the opportunities for SRE, own engineering talent, it's close to 2,000 positions might open up.
Okay.
So with the latest data I have, right? And as a community, I want to bridge that gap, prepare the talent to position them in the opportunities, right? This is not just to give a promotion, give a hike in their career, but it is also to bring the reliability across the system, reliability across the Hyderabad ecosystem.
Thanks, Vinay. So you have given a brief about the upcoming opportunities, which is a positive sign, and will not be replacing the SRE roles, and your community is taking care of lot of upskilling programs for the Hyderabad SRE community, and I would like to be part of the journey also and be part of multiple upskilling programs from RKIT labs. So as a closer line, if you can give final your view to the audience, that will be great.
Thanks, Ravi. As always, I enjoyed the conversation with you, and the topic close to my heart, SRE. And the reason I accepted this conversation, you know very well, right? Many people ask you and me, hey, can I be an SRE?
Right.
Hey, you are doing DevOps, you are already an SRE, right? And I think this helps me and to share with everyone, right, what is an SRE. And many leaders also look forward from our conversations to understand the better SRE culture, right? And I hope when we meet next time, we'll have a better elevated SRE community at Hyderabad. And thanks for inviting me again. And it was wonderful talking to you, as always.
Yeah, thanks, Vinay. And to conclude, today's discussion shows one thing. SRE is not a role, it's a mindset. Now in 2026, SRE is no more optional. It's business necessity, and I would like our viewers to focus more on upskilling yourself on the SRE principles and grab the new opportunities that will be creating as part of new upcoming GCCs. Please like, subscribe, and encourage RKIT Labs. Thanks for watching the podcast.